You can finally make yourself useful, Ava, my mother laughed, swirling her wine glass. We've booked the entire week of June at your new lake cabin. Whole family, 32 people. Boats, grills, fireworks, the works. Her tone was syrupy sweet, but I caught the poison underneath it. The kind that always dripped when she said family. The kind that reminded me I was never really part of theirs. Hi everyone. My name is Ava Monroe, and I learned the hard way that when people who once disowned you suddenly want a family reunion, it's never about love. It's about ownership. I bought the lake cabin last year. My first big purchase after years of rebuilding my life from ashes. It was small, quiet, surrounded by pine trees and still water that reflected the sky like glass. Peaceful. For once, something was mine. When my parents called pretending it was a bonding trip, I almost said no. But something in me paused. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that quiet ache in my chest, the part that still wanted to see if they'd changed. They hadn't. My mother's voice sparkled as she listed the plans. My father barked orders like I was still their teenage maid. My brother Lucas, the golden boy, joked about how I should stock up on champagne and towels. The same brother who once sold my car and told everyone I'd donated it. Me. I just smiled over the phone. Sure. You're all welcome. I hung up and looked out the cabin window. The lake shimmered under the fading sun, calm, unaware of what was coming. I traced the rim of my mug and felt something cold but steady settle inside me. If they wanted a week at my lake cabin, they'd get it. Every single one of them. As the reflection of the forest darkened on the water, I whispered to myself, let's make it a week they'll never forget. The wind shifted, rustling the trees as if nature itself had heard the promise. And in that silence I decided, this time I wouldn't just survive their games. I'd end them. The following weekend I drove back to the cabin early. Morning fog rolled off the lake like soft smoke. Every creak of the dock, every ripple of the water, reminded me of how peaceful this place used to feel, before their voices would fill it. I unlocked the door and started preparing. Not for their comfort but for clarity. I checked the guest list my mother had texted me, 32 names. Cousins who once ignored my graduation. Aunts who whispered that I'd inherited the wrong heart. Even Lucas, who drained my savings once to fund his startup, and now strutted around calling himself CO. They'd all be under my roof again. And this time I wasn't powerless. I walked through each room, noting what they'd touch, what they'd assume was for them. The cabin wasn't just a vacation spot anymore. It was my stage. Every drawer, every photograph, every framed memory was placed with intention. When my father arrived 2 days later, he stepped out of his SUV with that same commanding presence that once made me shrink. Ava, he said flatly, you could have trimmed the grass. First impressions matter. I just smiled. You're right, Dad. First impressions do. Behind him the rest poured out. Laughter, chatter, loud opinions. They carried food, drinks, fireworks, and their arrogance. They didn't even ask where to put things. They just claimed. The same way they once claimed my childhood home, my grandmother's jewelry, my peace. As they settled in, I handed everyone a small printed schedule. Just so we're all organized, I said lightly. My mother glanced at it, frowning. Ava, this looks formal. I met her gaze. It's a special week. You'll see. They thought I was being dramatic. I was being deliberate. And as the sun set over the lake that night, I whispered to the water. Let's begin. The reflection shimmered back at me as if the lake itself understood. The calm before the storm had finally ended. By the second day the cabin no longer felt like mine. It smelled like grilled meat, beer, and cheap perfume. Laughter echoed off the walls, the kind of laughter that wasn't joy but dominance. Lucas strutted in wearing designer sunglasses, a Bluetooth earpiece still attached. Nice place, sis, he said, tapping the oak table. You really went all out with Grandpa's money, right? I froze for half a second. He knew that was the one wound he shouldn't touch. Grandpa's inheritance was the only thing that had given me freedom after years of being their scapegoat. But Lucas always had a gift for cruelty. Mom chimed in sweetly, don't tease her, Lucas. She finally did something productive. Their words landed like needles. But I smiled, kept my tone calm. Thanks for noticing, I said. Dinner's ready in 10. I served them quietly, listening. Every conversation turned into gossip. My aunt bragged about her daughter's Ivy League fiancé. My cousins mocked small-town people. My father complained that the internet connection here is awful. And through it all I just watched. Because they didn't realize, every conversation, every snide remark was being recorded. Weeks before I'd installed small discreet cameras around the cabin, for security officially. But they'd become something else. A witness. After dinner I slipped out onto the porch. The lake reflected fireworks from a nearby town. Red, white and gold streaks in the night sky. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were celebrating freedom while standing on land they once told me I didn't deserve. I heard my name through the window. "Ava's probably trying to impress us," Mom sneered. She always needed validation. I smiled faintly at the reflection in the glass. "Oh, Mom. I didn't need validation. I needed closure. And when the right time came, they'd all see exactly what that looked like." The lake went still as if holding its breath, waiting with me. By midweek, the tension inside the cabin had grown thick enough to taste. Every smile was forced. Every joke had a bite. They still saw me as the quiet one, the girl who'd swallow her pain with politeness. That was their mistake. On Wednesday morning, I woke early and brewed coffee as the mist rolled across the lake. The sound of distant birds mixed with muffled snoring from the guest rooms. It was peaceful for now. I placed my phone on the counter, opened the hidden app connected to my cabin's cameras and reviewed the recordings. There they were, my parents mocking me over wine. Lucas bragging to my cousins about how easy it is to manipulate family money. My aunt whispering that I'd only been invited so they could scout the property's resale potential. Every word was crystal clear. Every lie preserved. When Mom walked in, she saw my calm face and smiled. "You should really learn to enjoy life, Ava. Stop being so intense." I stirred my coffee. "You're right, Mom. I think I'm finally learning how." That afternoon, they decided to host a family bonfire. I watched them drag logs, laugh too loud, light fireworks near the trees, reckless and arrogant as always. They toasted to forgiveness and fresh starts, while whispering about how I finally turned useful. Then Lucas clinked his glass and said, "To our generous little sister. Without her, none of this would be possible." I felt their eyes on me, expecting gratitude, submission. Instead, I raised my glass and said softly, "You're right. Without me, none of this would be possible." They laughed, thinking I was joking. But I wasn't. Behind me, my laptop hummed quietly in the cabin. The scheduled uploads had already begun. One video file at a time, straight to a shared family drive labeled Memories, June week. They thought it was a photo album. It wasn't. By the time the last firework faded above the lake, every secret conversation they'd had in my cabin was already backed up. Thursday morning began with shouting. My cousin Emma stormed into the living room, holding her phone like it was burning her hand. "Who uploaded this?" she shrieked. "Why is there a video of Aunt Claire calling Grandma a burden?" The room erupted, gasps, denials, accusations. My mother's face turned pale as she snatched the phone. My father barked, "Turn that off," while Lucas looked at me, narrowing his eyes. "Ava," he said slowly, "what did you do?" I tilted my head, pretending confusion. "What are you talking about?" He turned his screen toward me. Another video, this one of him bragging about siphoning company funds into his private accounts. The family watched in horrified silence as his own voice filled the room. I stayed still, calm as the lake outside. "Maybe the cabin's smart system picked it up," I murmured. "You know how everything's connected these days." Mom lunged forward, her voice sharp. "You planned this." Her words cracked the air, but I didn't flinch. I simply said, "You all invited yourselves here." I just let the truth in. Outside, the morning sun hit the water, blindingly bright. Inside, my family tore itself apart. Everyone accused everyone. Decades of hidden cruelty spilled into the open. Inheritance fights, lies, betrayals they'd buried under fake smiles. And I just watched. Silent. Steady. Lucas slammed his fist on the table. "You think this makes you better, Ava? You've ruined the family." I looked at him, the brother who once forged my signature to steal my college fund, and whispered, "No, Lucas. You ruined it years ago. I'm just giving you the mirror." He went quiet. Everyone did. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, low and heavy. The sky darkened as if echoing the weight of everything finally exposed. For the first time in my life, the house that once echoed with their power was filled with silence. And in that silence I felt something new, not revenge. Relief. The storm arrived that evening, sudden and fierce. Rain battered the lake in sheets, lightning split the sky, and thunder rolled through the mountains. Inside, my family scattered like frightened birds, half denying, half panicking, all exposed. Mom sat by the fireplace, her eyes wild. "You've gone too far, Ava," she hissed. "Do you realize what you've done? You've humiliated everyone." I stood near the window, watching the reflection of lightning ripple across the water. "No, Mom," I said softly. "You humiliated yourselves. I just turned on the lights." Dad slammed his hand against the armrest. "You're ungrateful. We raised you. Fed you." A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "Raised me? You mean tolerated me? You fed me guilt, not food." His jaw clenched. The same silence that used to scare me as a child now only made me feel stronger. Lucas, pacing near the door, muttered, "You'll pay for this, Ava. You can't destroy us and walk away clean." I turned to him, my voice calm and cold. "Destroy you? No, Lucas. I'm setting you free from the lies you built your lives on." He scoffed, but his voice cracked when he said, "You think anyone will believe this?" I walked over, handed him a flash drive, and whispered, "They already do." He stared at it, confused. "What is this?" "Proof," I said simply. "Everything. Financial theft, verbal abuse, the trust fraud. I sent it all to the authorities this morning. Along with Grandpa's lawyer's letter. The one you all pretended never existed." Mom's face drained of color. Dad froze. Lucas dropped the flash drive like it was poison. I continued quietly, "Grandpa left me full ownership of this cabin, and every acre of the surrounding land. The inheritance you all thought you erased? It was never yours." Outside, the storm raged harder, like applause from the heavens. Their empire of control had finally collapsed, and all I had to do was tell the truth. By Friday morning, the storm had passed, but inside the cabin the air was heavier than ever. My family avoided my eyes, moving around in tense silence. The same people who once barked orders now whispered like ghosts, terrified of what I might do next. Lucas tried to salvage control. He followed me out to the porch as I watched the mist drift off the lake. "Ava," he started, forcing a laugh, "we can fix this. Just delete the files. No one has to know." I didn't turn around. "You mean no one has to face what they did?" He sighed, stepping closer. "Think about the family's name. About Dad. Grandma." I finally faced him. "Grandma died thinking I'd abandoned her. You told her I stopped visiting, while you sold her heirlooms online. Don't talk to me about family." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. His silence was all the confession I needed. When I walked back inside, everyone sat in the living room, the same spot where they'd once laughed at my life, my choices, my pain. Now they looked small. Powerless. Mom broke the silence first. "What do you want, Ava?" The question hung in the air. Years ago I would have begged for her approval. For love. But not anymore. "I want peace," I said. "And for that I need distance." I handed them an envelope, notarized and final. "By tomorrow morning you'll all leave this property. Permanently. Any attempt to step foot here again will be treated as trespassing." Dad's face reddened. "You can't just erase your family." I looked at him evenly. "You did that a long time ago. I'm just acknowledging it." The lake outside shimmered under the returning sun, calm and bright, like a promise of something new. As I turned toward the door, I whispered half to myself, "Funny how silence feels louder when it's honest." And for the first time in years, my heart didn't ache when I said goodbye. Saturday dawned clear, the kind of morning that almost felt too calm, too clean after the storm. The lake reflected the sky like polished glass, erasing every trace of chaos. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, listening to the sound of cars starting one by one. They were leaving. My mother loaded the trunk without looking at me. My father slammed the passenger door in silence. Lucas stood last, watching me from across the gravel path, pride fractured, arrogance gone. For the first time he didn't speak, just nodded, small and uncertain. Then he drove away. The sound of their engines faded down the winding forest road, leaving only the wind and the water. For a long moment I just breathed. Inside, the cabin was quiet. No voices. No judgment. Just peace. I walked through each room. The kitchen where I'd once cried while they mocked me, the hall where I used to shrink when Dad shouted, the window where I'd stared at my reflection wondering if I'd ever matter. No. I did. I picked up the letter I'd placed on the mantel. Grandpa's handwriting, steady and kind. This property belongs to you, Ava. Not because of money, but because you understand what it means to build peace. Guard it. Fill it with truth. Tears blurred the ink, but I smiled through them. Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop one last time. The videos, the files, the evidence, all archived safely with my lawyer. I didn't need to look at them again. The world would take care of justice now. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I walked barefoot down to the dock. The air smelled of pine and rain. I let my fingers trail across the water's surface and whispered, "It's over." A single ripple spread out across the lake, soft and endless, carrying away the last trace of them, the last trace of who I used to be. For the first time in my life, the silence wasn't lonely. It was freedom.